I want this to be actual critique and not just nitpicking, but there will be a segment of nitpicking, and there will be Save the Cat slander. Before that, there's no way around the fact that How to Train Your Dragon 3 is literally dedicated to the author of Save the Cat, Blake Snyder, and there's just no way around the disrespect inherent in what I'm going to say. Every author has their own ideas about how writing should work. I disagree with Blake Snyder's. Unfortunately, my biggest beef is with the film literally dedicated to his memory, and there's no way around that, so here we go. How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World is a beautiful, stunningly beautiful movie, and it's an adequate film. Satisfying ending to a trilogy? Not so much. I'm not the only one to have noticed the abrupt assassination of theme in the third movie. There are some great videos by both Toon Runes and Sneezy Reviews. I will be putting links in the description that deal with a lot of the same theme inconsistencies that I'm going to be talking about, and I will be summarizing some of the same points. But I'm going to be doing some speculation on the writing philosophy that might be behind why they chose to end the movie this way. And probably some light comedic ranting for my own therapy because it's 2 years later and I'm still not over this ending. So let's start with the theme, which is really easy because all three movies start and end with a clear narration that, while not exactly stating the themes, clearly outline them. Extremely convenient, I know. The first movie starts in darkness, with Hiccup outlining the generation-spanning conflict with the dragons. But it ends in sunshine, as Hiccup celebrates the fact that dragons and Vikings can learn to live in peace together. Now, the second film, I'm going to pepper in some personal experience, because I tend to second-guess my own memories. And after seeing the third film, I thought that I had misremembered the second film being about actively choosing to make the world better. Turns out, nope. I was right. The second film opens with Hiccup narrating how they live in peace with the dragons in secret.
This is Burke. The best kept secret this side of, well, anywhere.
But ends with the clear and definite message of seeking to make the world a better place through action, and Hiccup literally saying, and I'm going to use as much of this clip as I can before Content ID stops me because I love this rallying statement.
This is Burke. A bit trampled and busted and covered in ice, but it's home. It's our home. Those who attacked us are relentless and crazy. But those who stopped them? Oh, even more so. We may be small in numbers, but we stand for something bigger than anything the world can pit against us. We are the voice of peace. And bit by bit, we will change this world. You see, we have something they don't. Oh, sure, they have armies, and they have armadas, but we have our dragons!
Like, fuck, I'm ready to take on an army after that. Like, yes, please, this is what I want. And then the third movie shits all over that. First off, and this might be a small thing, but I think it really exemplifies how the third one starts to drift off course, because it doesn't start with narration, but an action scene. When the narration arrives, it's not a proper voiceover like the other times, but Hiccup diegetically introducing a new dragon to the island. This is not a bad thing, but it is distinctly different than the other two movies, and my armchair writer's opinion is that it's a sign of how much trouble they're having pushing this story into a structure they had previously established. This beginning dialogue tells us how Hiccup has created, in his opinion, a dragon utopia. Well, visually, we're shown the overcrowding and instability inherent of the actual reality. When the narration returns at the end of the movie, we find the resolution to this is that the dragons must leave until the world is ready for them. This is a kick in the nuts to both preceding themes, which were each in some way about the strength that can be found in understanding and cooperation. Here, apparently, there's no fighting society, and you just have to hide until things are magically better. This is the crux of why I do not like this movie. This message is actively causing me pain. In all fairness, I can see the edges of the reasonings for why they took this route, and getting me to accept Toothless leaving was always going to be an uphill battle. I'm biased as hell. What can I say? Frankly, I have solid rebuttals for all of the hypothetical reasons I think they could have made this decision, and I honestly just think that they should have come up with a different plot for this. It should have ended differently. Why did you do this? The first reason is not a hypothetical. They ended the movie this way because the books also ended with the dragons leaving. They have stated this in interviews. I learned in the Sneezy Reviews video that fans were literally begging them not to end it this way at some point. And they did it anyway. Adaptations are hard. But I think it would have been obvious to anyone that if you make changes to the film version of a story, it's gonna impact the characters. It's gonna impact their arcs. It's gonna impact their world. If it's a series, those differences are going to compound over the course of the sequels. By the end, they're going to have evolved into entirely separate characters, and as such, no longer fit the endings they may have had in the source material. They changed a lot from the books to the film. To say that the films needed to end the same way the books did is to deny that they were telling different stories. If you really wanted to end the films the same way, you needed to do a lot more work to justify that decision. They did not do this work. Within the context of the movie, it makes no sense for Toothless to leave. They had a massive armada attacking them. And it took 6 20-somethings, not even the rest of the village, 6 20-somethings glided down from a cliff and defeated the whole fleet handily. And it makes sense for the dragons to leave after they've defeated that. Like, you have a bigger island to expand to now with all of your dragons. The hidden world is just off that direction. You can visit that anytime. Your dragons can use that as a sanctuary whenever they need to get away from humans for a little bit. Like, this is a more equal place where each can have the room that they need. The giant cliffs on your island are basically only easily accessible by dragonback, and the dragons have to leave now. You have the literal most defensible place on the planet for you and your dragons. You've just defeated the biggest feasible threat to you with 6 people, and it makes sense for them to leave. Like, I don't even think the villain is scary in the first place. Like, never mind him being incredibly boring and literally the 3rd dragon hunter in a row to be the antagonist. Like, Grimmel is dumb as a bag of dirt, and I'm reasonably sure I could take him with a bat. Like, at least Drago seemed physically threatening to me. Like, even if he had significantly less character. Stoic is a disappointed father figure. I would rather face Drago's bewilderbeast than him. But Grimmel, after being touted as a master hunter, has the best bait possible delivered to him, has both of his first traps sprung before they did any real damage, and even if you think he intended that, Hiccup was still already ahead of him. Once Hiccup leaves the island, despite Grimmel being able to deduce their direction, he is unable to find them until they attack him, and he only gets the idea to follow Ruffnut after she mentions an island, a thing he already knew they would be flying to. Like, okay, this is really petty and the most nitpicky thing I will point out here today, but when you watch this movie a few times, it starts to pull apart at the seams with all the convenient coincidences that happen to move the plot along, and I would just like to point out that when Grimmel manages to dart both the Furies, Hiccup is like 50 feet away, and somehow Grimmel manages to get 2 several hundred-pound dragons into harnesses in seconds by himself. Oh my god, moving on. Dragons as wild creatures. I think this is more of a sub-point, and one that I disagree with. I think the writers were thinking of the dragons as wild beasts, part of nature, and because of this they fell into the well-worn trope of let them be free. That for everything to be right, the protag has to let their animal friend go free back to the wild because that's where they belong. This ignores the fact that they have treated Toothless as an independent and feeling character in his own right through both of the first two movies. He can follow entire conversations and draw, for fuck's sake. The dragons are clearly sapient creatures, capable of making their own decisions and forming attachments past base instincts. To me, the dragons are a marginalized group of people, for lack of a better term. And quite frankly, it's not okay to tell a marginalized group of people to just fucking wait and things will get better. Things only get better when you fight for it. God, I wonder why this theme strikes me so bad. I'm still not over the implication made in the movie that Hiccup hadn't gone after Toothless in the Hidden World, that Toothless would have just never gone back to Hiccup, despite 2 movies, 2 TV shows, and 1 holiday special that literally ended with Toothless purposely smashing the first automatic tail rig Hiccup made him, and an incredibly clear declaration of, we fly together, or not at all, and the 3rd movie is just like, but female dragon. Okay, I lied. I'm gonna list another super nitpicky point of convenience that I have after watching this several times. Hiccup is shown calming dragons almost instantly, over and over through the movies. In the first scene of the movie, he calms a caged dragon that has been specifically traumatized by humans, and he instantly wins it over. But for some reason, his usual mojo just doesn't work on the one dragon that finds him and Astrid in the Hidden World, despite this only being an issue in the first movie when he was inexperienced and interrupted. I don't understand why the movie couldn't have dealt with them learning to be less codependent, but still ultimately focus on the fact that the relationship makes them stronger. There were so many other options, and they just didn't use any of. Save the Cat kills the theme. Okay, what is Save the Cat, and why is it relevant to How to Train Your Dragon? Save the Cat was a book on script writing written by Blake Snyder in 2005. It was marketed as the last book on script writing you'll ever need. That's why there's, 6 of them? The director of How to Train Your Dragon, Dean DeBlow, is a vocal follower of the school of writing. He has spoken about how the book helps him write, and the last movie is literally dedicated to the memory of the author. Thus, when I say that Save the Cat is part of the reason the 3rd movie's theme is like that, I'm not just blowing smoke. Now, I disagree with a lot of things in Save the Cat, and one day I would love to do a video on that. But let's just focus on the most relevant section. It's time to dive into Blake Snyder's ideas about genre. I promise it's relevant. Now, his ideas on genre are different than how most other people think of genre. And I understand what he's trying to do. I disagree. Instead of grouping movies as something like horror movies, being movies that share a lot of the same tropes, situations, and structures, Snyder groups movies almost entirely on structure. He has 10 basic genres. Some of them, like Monster in the House, make a lot of sense, are straightforward, and what he says about the movies in the genre is decently insightful. Others, like Dude with a Problem, defined as an ordinary guy finds himself in extraordinary circumstances, are so unspecific that he can list Die Hard, Schindler's List, The Terminator, and Titanic under the same genre. Since he does not specify any further, you can make the case that literally any movie is a dude with a problem. Look, generally, genres are categories of convenience. They don't have hard edges, and you can have all sorts of debates about what movie fits in what box. They are generalities created to make sweeping statements and compare and contrast films. I do not know what use a category that includes such wildly different films as Die Hard and Titanic can have in a conversation about movie structure. I honestly don't. But I digress. All 3 of the How to Train Your Dragon movies fit into the Snyder genre of rites of passage, and I will admit it's one of his more coherent genres. I cannot agree with his ideas on what the moral takeaway of one of those movies should be. And I quote, "In essence, whether the take is comedic or dramatic, the monster sneaks up on the beleaguered hero, and the story is the hero's slow realization of who and what the monster is. In the end, these tales are about surrendering the victory won by giving up to forces stronger than ourselves. The end point is the acceptance of our humanity, and the moral of the story is always the same. That's life." surrendering the victory won by giving up to forces stronger than ourselves. Boy, I wonder if that has anything to do with the ending of How to Train Your Dragon. Like, first off, I hate how he straight up just defines morals for each of his genres, like every movie should just have one of 10 predetermined morals. But again, I digress. My main issue comes from the framing, and I'm genuinely starting to suspect that Save the Cat is at fault for a lot of the coming-of-age stories that have felt off to me lately. Why do we keep framing the act of maturing into an adult through surrender and loss, especially the loss of those we deem important to us? I mean, I know part of it is this weird sentimentality that a lot of adults have towards childhood innocence. Way too many of them want to forget about the uncomfortable truths and just avoid them instead of dealing with them. Not relevant to the current theme under interrogation, I'm sure, but the surrendering part really confuses me. Fully maturing into an adult is not an act of surrender, nor should it be defined through loss. When you become who you are meant to be, you may lose something, but it was never important in the first place. That's why you're losing it to become who you were meant to. When you come of age, you're not surrendering. You are forming yourself into a true individual, and it's one of the most symbolic and important acts of rebellion you will ever perform in your life. Seeing Hiccup and Toothless's journey end with them surrendering to the previous status quo and giving up their bond to become separate leaders to their people is a gut punch to everything they have been through. And I'm convinced people only bought it because the visual of Hiccup saying goodbye to Toothless with the same hand gesture they once began their friendship with is one of the most powerful images in cinema and is genuinely heartbreaking. In film, visuals conquer everything, and I am still mad about it. People experienced genuine emotions during the scene, and I totally get that. It is, in fact, brilliant. But the underlying themes start to ring hollow the moment you start to think about it in the larger context. These two heroes defied family, instincts, and eventually entire nations to be friends, and they won handily every time. But after all that, the final chapter tells us, well, it was nice while it lasted, but they gotta go home to their real families. Like, I'm sorry, but if Toothless and Hiccup aren't family, what the fuck is? God damn it, Dean! Fight me! Anyway, those are my thoughts on that. So, thanks for watching my video. I'm hoping to actually do this regularly is a bit of a stretch. I'm hoping to get out at least like a single video essay every month, and if I can do that, I will see about doing even more. Thanks for watching. Bye. Okay, one last thing. After having to edit my voice for several hours, I just have a question for my friends. Were you ever going to tell me that I sound like a 14-year-old child? I am 25. I do not deserve the vocal disrespect these things give me every day. I had no clue.